Hey, what's up? It's Baz the Magician, and welcome to my tutorial on presentation. I want to reiterate the importance of this tutorial. Corporate greed has taken over America's magic circuit to the point where it's actually brainwashing people into not understanding that if you don't have a good presentation, you don't have a good trick. And what's happening is people are missing the presentation by the people who are presenting this just to make a buck, and then asking me, or when I point this out, well, what's the problem? What's the big deal? Let people do what they want. So this tutorial is going to show you why letting people do what they want without proper guidance is a problem. Now, one thing I want to point out in defense of people who are asking me questions: if you don't have a way to compare a shitty performance to a good one, then how do you know the performance is shitty? This is why I urge people, whenever you get a trick or you see a trick, do not take the first presentation anybody does. That includes me, anybody. Always look for as many presentations of the trick as you possibly can, because there are people who are going to perform it shitty, really bad, really good, and over the top. Now again, if you don't have that scope, then you really honestly have no business doing a trick, because again, 10% of the magic is the trick, 90% is presentation. So in this video, I'm going to literally go through a presentation at somebody's in a shop, professional, selling this, and I'm going to stop and break down exactly everything that they're doing wrong in this. And at the end, I'm going to do an entire presentation, and then I'll break down my presentation to show you the importance of what is going on. That being said, please enjoy the tutorial.
So guys, thank you very much for coming up here and helping me out.
Now, this is made by a company called Alakazam Magic UK, and that's found on YouTube. There's no spaces between it. And even though I know this is for purposes of selling a trick, a shop or somebody in a shop like this should not be setting up an unrealistic situation when selling a trick. For example, these three people that are around this guy are not going to question him, or they're paid not to question any mistakes he may make during this presentation. So this is, right off the bat, a bad idea.
We're going to do a card. Let me ask you, right? You do card tricks,
Yep.
right? And there are times where people say, oh, you go a little bit too fast.
All right, so there's two things going on here. One is less important than the other, and I'll cover that first. He didn't say the name of the trick. Now, this is just a suggestion and something that I do. When it's a trick I purchased, I actually say the name of the trick to the audience because it bonds you with the audience and draws them in more, so now they feel part of the trick. The more important thing that's going on here is that he's already asked these three, and they've confirmed that they do card tricks. Now, one of two things is going to happen here, because this is an unrealistic situation. Either A, they will feel bad because this person is presenting this trick so bad, and they won't say anything because they don't want to embarrass them any further, and this person is going to think that they're doing good. Or B, they are going to call them out on it because it may be a trick that they do, and he's making them look bad. But either way, again, I want to emphasize, trying to sell a trick like this in this situation is not good. It's unrealistic.
Yeah, so I'm going to slow this down for you. In fact, we're going to use these cards here. These are the 4 10s. We will come back to those in just a second. We will leave those just there.
So what I want to point out is this is one of the first major problems in corporate propaganda when they're peddling garbage. I'm not going to explain to you quite yet what the actual issue is, because this is where people start asking, well, what's the problem? You just put the 10s aside. I'm going to address that in my presentation, but I just want you to keep this in mind for now.
And we need some cards selected, so we'll use you for this if you don't mind, Lee. Some cards here. I want you to reach over and cut off a packet of cards, just leave them there, approximately half the deck. Very good. That is actually really, very good. Don't feel left out, because you're going to select a card as well. In fact, Lee's going to help you select a card. Take your card there.
All right, so what's happening here is when somebody's selling a trick, nothing infuriates me more than people pushing ridiculous and disingenuous forces that somebody is unaware is absolute garbage. So because of what he did in here, I am going to expose just how bad this is. And I don't care how many people get pissed off at me. This type of garbage needs to stop being pushed, because the guy behind the counter either doesn't know how to do forces correctly, or he just doesn't care, and he's pushing this type of crap back onto the person purchasing it. So what happens here is the person's going to say, hey, can you show me how to force this card? And they're going to show him something that is just ridiculous. There are thousands of better forces to do. And even though I did a basic one, the one that I did was way better than this. So let me explain. What he did when the person or the spectator cut the deck, he took the bottom half of the deck and placed it on the top of the deck at an angle, talked to them for approximately 3 seconds, which isn't even anywhere near long enough for a distraction, picked the bottom deck back up in his left hand, and he hands the top card of the deck from the top of the deck back to the person as if that's the card that they chose. I don't care who you are, you do not ever do that in a presentation, especially when you're selling the trick. It is not only disingenuous to the person buying it, but it is not fair to the person buying it. If you're going to do a force, do a decent one because of the way the trick is done.
It doesn't matter if I see it. You got it?
Yeah.
Perfect. And what is it?
3 of clubs.
Very good. Stick it somewhere in the middle of the pack for me. We'll leave that face up. Yeah, that's in there. Very good. Now, the reason I asked you to leave it face up is so that we could see whereabouts you actually stuck the card.
I don't think I need to point out, why the hell does this guy have his hand with the deck below the table? I don't care who you are, what level of Magic you are. Everybody in Magic knows better than to do that.
So that gives us now 2 cards, one here and one here. Wayne, if you want to turn over that card, that would be your one, and Harry, that's your one. So the 5 is yours, 3 is yours, and the 4 is yours. That's pretty neat, isn't it?
Yeah.
5, 4, 3.
Yeah.
Yeah, excellent. Okay, that wasn't planned, but there we go. Remember, you're 5, all right?
5.
So for the moment, we're going to leave that just somewhere in the middle of the pack. Fair?
Yeah.
So there's 2 things here. One, I could go either way with, which is him putting the card in the deck and say we're going to put it in the middle and doesn't really show it. I do during my presentation, but that's really not that big of a deal. I want to focus on the more important thing, that he put his damn hand below the table again, and not just he put it below the table a second time, he did it after he put a card in the deck. That is a direct no-no, and this guy should know better. That is absolutely uncalled for and should not be happening.
Yours is the 4, Harry. All right. So for the moment, we're going to leave that somewhere just in the middle of the pack.
Do I really need to say it again? This is the 3rd time he put his hand below the table. What is this guy doing?
Now, what was your card? You had to look down then. You didn't know what it was, did you? Right? Shame on you. Look, the 3, take it, turn it face down and stick it somewhere in the middle of the pack. Perfect. Fair?
Yep.
Excellent. Okay.
Now, I want to point out, I am very fair when it comes to the critiques. Just because I don't like something, that doesn't mean I will not say something good. And I have to point out, despite this guy's piss-poor performance, his mannerisms, his explanations, the way he's interacting with his audience, and the instructions he's giving them is actually really good. It doesn't excuse his piss-poor performance, but I will give him credit on that.
So look, we're just going to leave that there. Now, I did say that sometimes people accuse me of going too fast. I tried to do that as slow as I possibly can. And I did say that the 10s would help me out. And in fact, they will. Look, all we have to do is just leave that there, give it a little riffle like this. And in between each card now is a 10.
I just wanted to remind you of something I said at the beginning about the placement of the 10, which was a problem. And again, if you don't know what I'm talking about, wait till my presentation, because it will become clear that the way he put the 10s down was absolutely atrocious.
Sorry, is a card. All right, in between each 10 is a card. If I've got it right, just say yes. That would be your 3, your 5,
Nice.
and last but not least, your card,
That's
Harry, the
amazing.
4.
Excellent.
All right, so there's 2 things going on here that I can't explain the way they need to be explained, or it will expose the trick. I'm not about to do that. So I'm going to explain this a little weird, so just bear with me. First, the way he pulls the cards out from between the 10s isn't the best. There are better ways to do it, but I'm not going to fault him for that. That can go either way. The main point that I'm talking about is at the beginning of the trick, when he had the spectators pull the cards out and he put them into the deck, he never pointed out which card was going in the deck first, second, and third. Then, at the end of the trick, he never revisits that point and does it again. The importance of that is shown in the demonstration of the trick that I do, and I will break it down and explain it as it's going along. I just wanted to point that out and get that out of the way.
Just like that.
Doing better? That was amazing.
Thank you very much.
Now that you've seen that demonstration, what I was talking about, I'm going to take you through and break down and show you my demonstration, so this way anybody asking me or has asked me, well, why don't you just let people do what they want? If the end result is the same, what's the big deal? This is going to show you what the big deal is, because presentation absolutely matters. I also want to remind you that at the beginning of his demonstration, I specifically said something I would be going over in my demonstration that he did with the tens. So I just wanted to remind you of that. And finally, there are subtle things that I do during all of my tricks and presentations that the spectator may not know, but I do it because it takes the trick from a great trick and puts it over the top. And I'll be going over what those subtle differences are in my demonstration now. So here I have Ultra Collectors by Don England. Normally when I do this trick on my show, I usually get a couple of magicians and or people who understand how to handle cards accuse me of setting the deck up ahead of time, to which I reply, you're absolutely right, I do. I'm not even going to hide the fact that I have 4 tens sitting on the bottom of this deck right from the beginning. And I leave them spread out there so you can see them. So there are 2 problems with what he did. First, when he took the 10s out of the deck, he didn't show all 4 of them clearly. That's a problem. Secondly, and more important, he squared them up and put them on the card case instead of leaving them spread out the way I have them. This trick requires these 10s to be spread out like this for a reason, and that reason becomes clear at the end of the trick. Squaring them up is a direct no-no for this. Now, I invite 2 volunteers up because we're going to need 3 cards that we're going to wind up putting back in this deck. So I have them tell me when to stop to get my card, and then they're going to use my card to get 2 additional. So what I did here is extremely difficult to do, and I'll explain what I'm talking about. One of the worst things you can do as a magician is have your audience not be able to follow along with anything you're saying, and they get confused and don't have any idea what the hell is going on. What I did may have been slightly long-winded, but that is forgiven because I not only kept the audience engaged, I told them exactly what was going on, what was going to happen, so I made absolutely sure that they could follow along with everything I was saying. This takes practice, but it is crucial to the presentation. So first off, for purposes of the demonstration, I'm just going to stop here, and that's going to be my card, which since we're picking it first is going to be used last. So there are 2 things that I did here. First, obviously the trick uses the 3 of clubs. So since I explained to you how he got the audience member to pick the 3 of clubs, I'll explain to you how I did mine. Mine is called a riffle force. As you can see how I have my hands in the video, basically what I do is I get the 3 of clubs on top of the deck. I hold the deck between my hand, as you can see in the video, and I use my thumb to riffle down one corner and I say stop, which is where the card is. And with my pressure on my pinky, I put pressure on the top of the deck with my pinky, so when I split the deck from where I cut it with my thumb, the pinky is sliding the card off the top of the deck, and that's how, in one motion, it looks like that's where your card came from. So I just wanted to explain that. As you can see, the way I did the force and the way he did it are worlds apart. Never do what he did. It is really bad. Find a different force. The second thing I did is I explained what exactly was going to be happening once I got the 3 of clubs out of the deck. I didn't really leave any dead space in between what I was talking about when I was, originally putting the 10s and things out. So this way the audience members are continuing to follow along with what I'm saying. Again, the worst thing you can do is lose your audience members. Now, how they're going to get their cards out is they're going to use my 3 to insert somewhere in the deck so a card winds up on top and bottom of this. So for purpose of speeding this up, I'm just going to show you that those are the 2 cards that people have here. This next part of what I did is one of those subtle things that I added to the trick that take the trick from a good trick to a superb trick. The audience members are not aware of this, but without adding this in, sure, you can get a good effect. But when you do what I'm about to do, it enhances the effect to something phenomenal. and that is I start talking about which order the cards go into the deck, because that plays into the very end of the trick when you finish it. And what I'm going to do now is I'm going to have them flip their cards over, and it's important to understand that they're going to choose one of these cards to go in the deck first. So let's say for purposes of this, I'm going to say the King of Diamonds is going in the deck first. And as you can see, it's literally going somewhere in the middle of the deck here. Yes, I know that's not in the middle of the deck. And yes, this is one of these tweaks I made to the trick that's not in the instructions. I did it on my own. It's not required to do the trick. But the point I'm making here is this is why I tell people when they ask me, well, what's the big deal? Why does it matter? Okay, let's look at this as a whole. Even though this is not necessary, if you take a look at the way he does it, he tells you he's putting a card in the middle of the deck without ever showing you, so you have to take your word on it, compared to what I'm doing here is actually saying the card is going in the middle of the deck while showing it happen. This is why a professional can take a trick and turn it into something an amateur could never do. It's because they understand these little concepts literally change the dynamic of the trick. And I'm not saying you have to do this. I'm saying when you don't do this, you are not presenting the trick the best you can. That's all. Or near the bottom here, whatever. Okay, so now I'm going to have them tell me when to stop again, because I'm going to ripple from the back, and they're going to tell me when to stop, and that's where this card is going to go. So I'll just say stop here, okay? So as you can see, I'm going to place it somewhere near middle. Yes, I know that's not in the middle. However, there's two things going on here that are intertwined with each other, and one of them I did on purpose to get my point across. So first, once again, I said I was going to take a card and put it in a place in a deck, and I put it where I said I was going to. That leads me into the second part of this, where I did something on purpose to explain to you amateurs what you're seeing the audience do, and that was when I riffled the deck from the back, it looked extremely suspicious, and it drew attention to that. So when people ask me, well, why does it matter? Just let them do the trick. Why does it matter on presentation? Because that's the stuff your audience is seeing that you are drawing attention to that they may not show you, but you don't want the attention brought to it. I did that so you guys can see exactly what the hell I've been talking about. Now, there's another crucial piece of information I'm going to give you guys. If an audience member does happen to see something like that, if you take a look at the way my hand is positioned in the video right now, I remedied any suspicion by turning my hand sideways and showing you I really didn't do anything. So in reality, I can literally get away with saying, oh, I was just messing with the deck to ripple it to get it ready. Okay, so again, you have to stay 3 steps ahead of your audience and be aware of what your audience can see. So when you don't do presentations correctly, these are the mistakes you make and why I rail into people about presentation and a proper or better way to do certain moves. So I hope that got the point across by me literally doing something you can see, screw up, and show you what the audience is seeing. Sorry, I'm trying to show this on camera. All right, so now, for purposes of this, 4 and 3 is good. I'm just kidding. This has nothing to do with the trick. I just wanted to distract you for a minute. But anyway, I'm going to have them take my 3 and put it somewhere in the deck in the middle. As you can see, it goes in, and that's it. Now, what I did here is, again, another subtle thing that I added to the trick, which connected the previous cards that I put in the same exact fashion to keep the flow of the trick smooth. So instead of saying I put cards in the middle and didn't show it, I put a card in the middle, showed it, card in the middle, showed it, and the last card follows the same exact pattern of being put in the middle and showing it. So you literally do the same thing throughout the entire trick, so it's consistent, because it's a little weird not showing the first 2 cards, but showing the third one. So I just wanted to point out, again, subtle things literally make the difference in a trick. Now, these 10s have been sitting over here. I'm going to gather up, place them on top of the deck as is, do that, and instantly you will see 3 cards go in between these 10s. So I'm going to talk about this for a bit because I'm going to drill something into people's heads with this. This right here, as you can clearly see now, why I said these 10s must remain spread apart so you can see them. They have to be. It's part of the trick itself. The effect of this trick is to get the 3 chosen cards in between these 10s under an impossible circumstance. When the cards are not spread apart and they are bunched together, you have killed the effect, because in the end, you will get the cards between the 10s, but it's nowhere near what the effect is supposed to look like. So again, anybody saying, well, what's the big deal in the end? If you have to ask that after you visually just saw the effect of this, then I don't know what to tell you. But this is, again, why I say there is a proper way to do a trick and an improper way to do a trick, and what you should and shouldn't be doing. So if people are going to take shortcuts, they are killing the effect, and they don't even realize it. My card was put in the deck last, so I'll pull that out first. Now, there's a couple of things going on here. First, this is one of these subtle tweaks that I made to the trick. It's not in the instructions, it's not part of it, and you can do the trick without it. However, this subtle tweak takes the trick and completely changes the entire dynamic of it because of the presentation I did. Because I started this trick with the spectator, and I'm going to end it with the spectator on a bang, because this goes beyond just taking the chosen cards and having them wind up between the 10s. Let me explain. If you recall at the beginning of the trick, I very explicitly asked the spectator what order they want me to put the cards in the deck. Fast forward, now I bring you up here and I show that the order in which you had me put them in is the same order I have them in the deck in the end. The reason for this tweak I did is because not only does it bond the spectator with the trick, it makes the trick about the spectator. You get 10 times more respect, and on top of that, the trick has a phenomenal end. If somebody else happened to see it without it, it would blow them away, because they go, oh, I've seen that before, but I've never seen it done like that. That was better than anything I've seen. That's literally the reactions and the statements I get from audience members who have seen stuff that are mediocre that I do that are just better. And that's not to be cocky, but these are the tweaks that I do, and these are the important factors that make the trick what it is, and why I say there is a proper way to do a trick and there isn't a proper way to do a trick. Now, if people want to go ahead and do it without it, fine. But I'm showing you every single thing that you're missing. You're screwing yourself over, and you're not doing the trick justice by leaving these things out. So again, when people ask me, well, why does it matter? But people are doing the trick. If you watch this video and still have to ask those questions, then I don't know what to tell you. But this video should prove to you exactly what I'm talking about, which is the 3. Now, if you remember, the very first card that was put in was the King of Diamonds. And the second card that was put in was the Ace of Diamonds. And that is Ultra Collectors by Don England. So this is a personal thank you from me to the people watching this. I know this is long, but I really wanted to make an in-depth tutorial because people were really missing the concept and they don't think they understood exactly what was going on. So hopefully this tutorial gets you to see why, if you don't do these subtle things or you don't do these things and want to go directly after the effect, you're just hurting yourself. Because, again, what I said in that tutorial is a true story. I have literally had spectators watch a trick that I do, that they have watched somebody else do, that skipped out on all these things, and they go, I've never seen that like that. That was phenomenal compared to what I just saw. What happens now is the spectator goes away with a way that the trick is done that to them can't be topped. So anybody else doing it in that fashion that they skipped all these things in, is the audience member is not going to be impressed, and you've just hurt yourself. So I wanted to clear that up, be fair about everything, and hopefully you take this information to heart. Other than that, I wish everybody well, no ill will, stay safe, be kind to each other. Spasm Magician signing out. Have a good one.